Thanks for joining this presentation, which is an overview of the NCI cooperative groups. My name is Al Benson. I'm a professor of medicine and a GI medical oncologist at the Robert H. Lurie Comprehensive Cancer Center of Northwestern University. And I'm also serving as the current vice chair of ECOG-ACRIN. During this presentation, I hope to give you a brief review of the components of the NCI cooperative group system. So we'll start with NCTN, which is the NCI's National Clinical Trials Network. This network is a collection of organizations and clinicians that coordinate and supports cancer clinical trials at more than 2,200 sites across the United States and Canada, and even internationally. The NCTN does provide the infrastructure for NCI-funded treatment and primary advanced imaging trials with the hope to improve the lives of people with cancer. This shows the structure of the NCI Cooperative Groups program prior to the NCTN. The cooperative group system actually was established in 1955, and the first trial, I believe, was in 1956. So this system has been around for a long time. But previously, there were these multiple groups which eventually merged. And this came out of a discussion with multiple meetings, including the Institute of Medicine review of the cooperative groups in terms of recommendations how to further advance the system. So you can see here that once upon a time, ECOG was a separate group, as was ACRIN, and these two groups did merge to form our current ECOG-ACRIN group. So in discussing this history, a few major changes were made to the cooperative group program when it was first begun in the 1950s. And then, as I mentioned, the Institute of Medicine and other expert committees reviewed the cooperative group program and concluded that with 10 decentralized groups, there were 9 adult groups and 1 pediatric group. And I should mention, back then, there was a merger of the pediatric groups to form just one. But each had its own operations and statistical centers, tissue banks, and other scientific support services needed, and it was felt there was the need to become more efficient and collaborate and to restructure to fulfill the promise, particularly of precision cancer medicine, which was also evolving at that time with the utilization of sequencing to identify growing subsets of individual patients, as well as to have a focus on rare diseases. And of course, some of the subsets actually represent relatively rare situations. So the NCTN was established in 2014 based on this extensive review. The NCTN has the following objectives: to establish and support an infrastructure designed to harmonize processes and promote collaborations for the NCTN, to reinvigorate the clinical trials portfolio. And this includes continue to focus on questions that may not be well supported by industry, for example. And the cooperative groups do have a long history of performing these trials that have certainly led to changes in the practice of medicine. Also, to prioritize trials and incorporate innovative science and design into clinical trials, to provide a functional platform to perform large-scale testing of increasingly smaller subsets of molecular defined cancers, and incorporate precision medicine trials into the portfolio, along with the trials in rare tumors, as I had stressed before. And so many of our trials now have laboratory correlates, as well as other correlates such as imaging. Also, to maintain a commitment to the conduct of trials in special populations. And historically, the cooperative groups have and continue to emphasize phase 2 trials, and nowadays, particularly randomized phase 2 trials, as well as phase 3 trials. So this is the current structure. So you can see that there's the one pediatric group, and now the 4 adult groups. SWOG, which previously had been called the Southwest Oncology Group and now is SWOG, was the only one that did not actually have a merger of other groups. But all the other groups did form these mergers, and now there's the Alliance, NRG Oncology, SWOG, ECOG-ACRIN, as well as pediatrics. And then there's also the Canadian Network Group that participates in US cooperative group trials, as well as the NCORP site participation group. The NCORP are funded by a separate NCI mechanism. And you can see that there are a number of centralized functions within the NCTN. That includes the centralized institutional review board, the Cancer Trial Support Unit, Imaging and Radiation Oncology Core, referred to as IROC, and Common Data Management System. In addition, there are the 32 lead academic participating sites referred to as LAPS. This funding allows academic centers, mostly NCI comprehensive cancer centers, to fund their participation in the clinical trial system. It also includes operations, statistics, and data management, tissue banks, as well as the member sites. So member institutions of the domestic adult network groups may enroll patients on all adult phase 3 and select early phase trials. So what this means, even if your prime affiliation might be with ECOG-ACRIN, you actually can participate in a SWOG trial, an Alliance trial, or an NRG trial. It does not matter. So trials are available throughout the system. In addition, the LAPS are affiliated with the network groups and provide leadership in the design, conduct, and enrollment of participants in NCTN trials. And then the CTSU, which I'll review in a second, provides administrative support and additional services for the clinical trials conducted by the NCTN program. So the Cancer Trials Support Unit, the CTSU, is a service of the NCI. It was originally established in 1999 to facilitate participation in the NCI Cancer Clinical Trials Program. It streamlines and harmonizes support services for NCI-sponsored trials in cancer treatment, but also in cancer prevention and control, advanced imaging, and correlative science studies. The CTSU is directed by the NCI Cancer Therapy Evaluation Program, known as CTEP, via a government contract that is operated by Westat and other contractors. There's also the NCI Experimental Therapeutics Clinical Trials Network, ECOG-ACRIN. Now, this also evolved. Previously, phase 1 clinical trials were supported by the NCI, but usually funding individual cancer centers that would conduct these phase 1 trials. This has now been completely changed to the ECOG-ACRIN, which is now a consolidated, integrated network comprised of organizations conducting early phase cancer treatment trials. So rather than just funding one particular center, these centers work together in terms of conducting phase 1 trials. There are actually 2 programs, the ECOG-ACRIN Phase 1 Emphasis Program, which is made up of lead academic organization grantees and associated sites. So often a cancer center will collaborate with a few other centers in terms of forming their grant, and they may also have other associated sites that are participating. And there's also the Early Drug Development Opportunity Program, which is made up of non-ECOG-ACRIN NCI designated cancer centers who participate. And both of these groups sponsor and participate in the ECOG-ACRIN studies. I mentioned the central IRB. So this provides central IRB services for NCI-supported networks and consortium as outlined in federal regulations. And all NCTN and ECOG-ACRIN clinical trials are reviewed and approved by the central IRB prior to activation and posting of the documents to the CTSU website. Institutions participating in NCTN, ECOG-ACRIN, or NCORP-led trials must be members of the Central IRB and use the Central IRB for review of studies opened after March 2019. And so all of our institutions must utilize this review during the process of activation of studies at individual sites. There are actually 4 central IRBs. There's the adult central IRB, the late phase emphasis IRB, the adult CIRB, early phase emphasis, and pediatric central IRB, and the cancer prevention and control center, central IRB. The NCI clinical trials site is mentioned here, and it is a registry and clinical trial results database provided by the NIH, and it does provide ready access to information on clinical studies of human participants conducted around the world. And so this is a great resource. It doesn't necessarily give you the full description of each clinical trial, but it is helpful to give you an idea of the clinical trial and availability. And studies are registered to clinicaltrials.gov upon study activation, and the information is updated throughout the study. And importantly, all trials supported by the CTSU are listed on clinicaltrials.gov. The NCI Community Oncology Research Program is known as NCORP, and this also was developed in 2014 and replace the previous CCOP program, which was also a funded alliance of community oncology practices. And the idea here is to ensure that people can participate in clinical trials, particularly focused on cancer control, prevention, and cancer care delivery, regardless of where they live. NCORP is a network of institutions that conduct clinical trials, as well as cancer care delivery research in the community where most of the cancer patients receive their care. In fact, it's estimated that over 2/3 of cancer patients who participate in clinical trials do so through the community, not the academic medical centers. The NCORP network designs and conducts clinical trials in these areas, including cancer prevention, screening, supportive care and symptom management, surveillance, health-related quality of life, and cancer care delivery. In fact, with APP participation now within the cooperative groups, these may be particular areas of interest to APPs, where an APP may actually help design a trial in these areas, serve as a principal investigator, and certainly be a lead person at their institution to support participation in these types of clinical trials. The network also participates in treatment and imaging clinical trials conducted by the NCTN and integrates health disparities research questions into NCORP studies. The NCORP network includes 7 research bases, which do include ECOG-ACRIN, 46 community sites, and 14 minority and underserved community sites, including more than 1,000 affiliates across the country. The network now covers 44 states, the District of Columbia, and the territories of Puerto Rico and Guam. The NCORP research bases are research hubs that provide an established organizational structure with scientific and statistical leadership for development, implementing, and analyzing clinical research and quality of life studies. The NCORP minority underserved community sites are consortia of community hospitals and/or oncology practices, public hospitals, or academic medical centers that have a patient population consisting of at least 30% of racial, ethnic minorities or rural residents. These community sites accrue patients and participants in exactly the same manner as the community sites. This just shows you a map of the NCORP affiliates, so you can see throughout the country we have many participants who contribute to this program. The NCORP is housed in the NCI Division of Cancer Prevention with collaboration by the NCI Division of Cancer Control and Population Science, NCI Division of Cancer Treatment and Diagnosis, and the NCI Center to reduce cancer health disparities. As I mentioned, the NCORP has separate funding from compared to other participants in the clinical trials arena as funded by NCI. The Division of Cancer Prevention is a division of the NCI devoted to cancer prevention research and provides funding and administrative support to clinical and laboratory researchers, community and multidisciplinary teams, and collaborative scientific networks. The NCORP network works closely with other NCI supported programs. So these include, as I mentioned, NCTN, as well as the central IRBs, the Center to Reduce Cancer Health Disparities, as well as other advisory and scientific committees, the tumor banks, the imaging and radiation oncology core as really important examples. So in terms of ECOG-ACRIN, who are we? ECOG-ACRIN Cancer Research Group is a membership-based scientific organization that designs and conducts cancer research involving adults who have or are at risk of developing cancer. It's a very extensive network involving 1,400 academic and community-based cancer centers and hospitals in the US and around the world. There are approximately 21,000 oncology professionals who are involved in group research, and these include physicians, translational scientists, and associated research professionals from the member institutions, along with advocates. And now we are including our APPs as part of the professionals who are involved in our group. The mission is to reduce the burden of cancer and improve the quality of life and survival of adult patients with cancer. So we have as the core our participating institutions and individual investigators who belong to ECOG-ACRIN, as well as our research support committees and our research cores. And there are three particularly critical programs involved within ECOG-ACRIN, and they include our therapeutic studies program, our biomarker sciences program, as well as cancer control and outcomes program. The overarching scientific themes that drive group research include precision oncology, which of course is becoming increasingly important as we select patients based on molecular profiling. One of the most phenomenal, more recent advances in oncology include immunotherapeutics, and certainly within ECOG-ACRIN, there's a very, very important focus on immunotherapy, as well as programs to reduce overtreatment and overdiagnosis, to leverage novel biomarker platforms to inform therapeutic decision-making, advanced standards of care and broad populations of cancer patients and those at risk, as well as to reduce the burden of cancer on individual and societal level. Okay. The next slide is our group-wide organizational chart. And you can see this includes our group co-chairs. Dr. Peter O'Dwyer is the co-chair on the ECOG side, and Dr. Mitch Schnall is the co-chair on our ACRIN side. However, it's very clear Peter and Mitch interact continuously to really create a very seamless, cohesive organization. The governance group is very, very important in terms of the overall running of ECOG-ACRIN. And the governance includes the principal investigator committee, executive committee, and nominating committee. We also have scientific planning and review committees in terms of really helping to prioritize group activities, as well as membership. Our operations group and critically, our biostatistics and data management group. You can see under the scientific programs, as I mentioned, uh, uh, we have 3 critical programs, including Cancer Control and Outcomes Program, Therapeutic Studies Program, and Biomarker Sciences Program. And all of these have their committees to help develop the scientific projects that will move forward, uh, and also interrelate, because if you look at our disease committees and the protocols that they develop, many of these protocols have, for example, quality of life studies that emerge from Cancer Control and Outcomes Program, and have biomarker correlates, which uh, can be reviewed and informed by our biomarker sciences program. We also have a host of research support committees, such as audit and quality control, oncology nursing, community cancer, and now we need to add our advanced practice provider group to this group of committees. And then we have a variety of research cores, particularly critical to many of our studies is the Central Biorepository and Pathology facility. So ECOG-ACRIN has semi-annual meetings, which are very critical for promoting group activities, and also to serve as work groups so that investigators can meet and discuss trial ideas. So during these meetings, there are presentations that review the latest and basic clinical and translational research by the group leaders in areas of cancer prevention, imaging, diagnosis, and treatment. They provide a forum for academic inquiry among physicians, clinical research professionals, patient advocates, and others. Also, during these meetings, there are education sessions on engaging patients and the public in the clinical research process, reinforce compliance with group policies and procedures, and offer non-CME training and education workshops for research professionals. These meetings are open to researchers and staff affiliated with member institutions, ECOG-ACRIN patient advocates, industry representatives, and other invited individuals. Of note, during the meetings, there are core committee meetings, and these do tend to be closed. But what that means is that they are closed to people outside the group, such as industry representatives. However, ECOG-ACRIN members are indeed encouraged to attend these core meetings. But those meetings are often presenting information that's confidential, and that is the prime rationale why they must be closed, and offer a free exchange of ideas as well as data. So here's an example of ECOG-ACRIN fall meeting. What you can see here is that there are core committee meetings during these Wednesday sessions. But what I've outlined in red are meetings that may be particularly of interest to APPs. So these include the Health Equity Committee, Cancer Care Delivery Research Committee, as well as the Task Force on Advancement for Women. This is a relatively new task force, but has had some really wonderful presentations, have provided awards to prominent women who have been really role models for women in research, and has been a great group to overall promote women within ECOG-ACRIN, but also addressing advancement of women in research and across our institutions. Also, after the task force meeting, there's a wonderful network hour that's actually enhanced with wine and cheese, but a great opportunity for people to get together on a more informal basis. Also, there are other meetings, for example, the Young Investigator Symposium and the AYA Subcommittee. This is of particular interest, certainly for me in GI oncology, where we're noticing the increasing incidence of younger people who are developing cancers. Colon and rectal cancers represent a great example of that. And for young people with colon and rectal cancer, this has become, in the GI world, a particular focus of interest and research. There's also the Cancer Control and Survivorship Committee, which I think would be of special interest, particularly since these offer opportunities for APPs to help develop studies, to serve as co-chairs, and as I mentioned, to serve as sponsors of this type of research at their individual centers. There's also the Community Cancer Care Committee, our Advanced Practice Providers Committee, which is the newest, Social Determinants of Health Working Group. This group is also extremely important because it has been known for quite a long time that these social determinants can have an impact on cancer outcomes. And so it's becoming increasingly important to integrate these social determinants, certainly in terms of data capture within our clinical trials. Also, the general session and the reception is open to all, and also another great opportunity to meet people and interact with colleagues. Other committee meetings of interest, they're the pharmacist, oncology nurse, and CRA data managers have an education symposium which covers a range of topics that I think would be of interest to APPs. There's a joint ECOG-ACRIN NMA advisory panel. This is the National Medical Association. The NMA was formed over 100 years ago because tragically, Black physicians were not allowed to participate in other medical professional organizations, such as the AMA. And the late Dr. Edith Mitchell and our late group chair, Dr. Bob Comas, were very instrumental in bringing the NMA within the group, providing advice and participation. And also, this group has been able to bring young professionals to our ECOG-ACRIN meetings to expose them to oncology research. There's also the TMIST update and education session. TMIST is a very large radiology study for breast cancer screening. And so I think that update would be of interest. There's also the Prevention Screening and Surveillance Committee, one of our newer groups, a Real World Data Working Group, as well as the Prevention Subcommittee, all of which may be of particular interest to APPs. And finally, this just gives you an example of ECOG-ACRIN cancer control and outcomes trials. There's a trial looking at improving adolescent and young adult self-reported data in ECOG-ACRIN trials. There's a cost, communication, and financial navigation in cancer patients project. One, evaluating the impact of social and genetic factors on outcomes in adolescent and young adult cancer survivors. I mentioned TMIST, which is looking at mammography and screening patients for breast cancer, as well as the pancreatic cyst surveillance program, which is under revision currently. So I hope my remarks gave you at least some sense, not only of ECOG-ACRIN, but the NCI programs that are so important for patients and through the years have made unbelievable contributions to the care of cancer patients throughout the US and even the world. Thanks for listening.